Hey folks, it's Amy from Colorado Mountain Living. Today I want to take you through our retaining wall build. It's been 2 years officially since it's been built, and I want to show you how it's holding up. I know there were some concerns before about our construction, our methods, our materials even, but today I'm going to take you through how the retaining wall is doing, how it's holding up, and is it going to be a lifetime piece for us? So there's 3 elements to the retaining wall that Brian built. Now you can see behind me there's a bunch of rocks here. That was the boulder scaping that we did afterwards. But above that, the darker wood is the railroad ties and then the pressure treated posts holding them in place. And then there is an additional rock wall that's against the side of the house. I'll show you over here. Let me take you in closer to show you how it's shaping up. Definitely tricky walking around in the tall grass. We've had so much rain this summer. The grass is up to my armpits. It is like super tall grass, probably the tallest I've ever seen. So there's 3 levels to the rockscaping. There was one area right here, a little small one, a larger one right up here, and then a little bit more rock right at the base of the wall here. Now the goal was to carry this rockscaping the length of the retaining wall, but we haven't gotten around to it this summer. And in fact, it's kind of dangerous walking around here because there's a lot of loose rock, and a lot of the brush is wild mountain rose, which has millions of thorns on it. Not the kind of place you want to be walking around with shorts. So you can see all of the wildflowers. And then we get a bare area. So we haven't planted anything along the retaining wall itself. Still trying to decide what we want to put here. Brian wants to put some trees here, but this is a little bit of a traffic area. We do get the moose walking around here. That is a moose track. The retaining wall stands at about 4 feet high. That's the limit for our county before you need a permit to build an even taller retaining wall. So before we had the retaining wall, it was just a huge dirt slope in front of the house, hard packed dirt. And that's not the kind of thing that you want to have as the edge of your property where your house is for years to come. So putting in a retaining wall was the right idea for us because our entire property's on a slope, and we wanted to make that more secure for the house and the addition of the house that's coming down the line. Now I want to take you to the other side of the house where Brian built up a rock wall. Now the rock wall is really my favorite area. I've been doing a lot of landscaping here. I've been taking in a lot of the natural plants and transplanting them, along with some purchased plants from nurseries. It looks really nice with all of the natural rocks that Brian selected from our property, making a little pathway, throwing some gravel down. Aesthetic pathway for people and dogs. Although there's one area I'm not happy about, and that is an area that Vigo seems to help himself to. He digs out this corner so he can make a nice cool bed to lie down in because this area gets a lot of shade. And I had to go and put in a shrub because Vigo was claiming this as his own, digging up all the plants that I put in there. So that's what this mess is about. And then this side of the retaining wall, Brian did a lot of rockscaping on level by level. And although I've thrown down a lot of wildflowers, it tends to get grown up by grass and those wild mountain roses. Especially at the bottom, it's definitely overgrown right in there. Well, and we just caught some rain here, and I got Brian here on the...
Lots of rain. Got home from a bike ride and it just opened up.
Right now we're on the top side of the retaining wall, and Brian's going to chime in on a few aspects about maybe some things that we wished went better or some things we still got to work on. There's a couple of things. Brian was just looking at how the ground's been settling.
Yeah, which is what we expected. So, we backfilled it and drove on it, but, as the seasons go by, it rains and it, freezes, thaws, so we get some settling of the dirt, which is what we wanted. So the pressure treated logs here. I'm leaving them long in case you want to put a railing up across so we can attach to those. Some of the railroad ties, like I had to get them from different locations, different suppliers, and they were not the same dimensions. So we've got a lower spot over here and then higher over here. So these stick up higher above the grade. So I'm thinking of doing is if I ever get a bandsaw mill, I'll just trim the longer ones down and then maybe get a couple. We need about 3 more to even it out. So
as we have the railroad ties come along the edge, suddenly there's not one right here.
Right.
And then there isn't any. It's pretty level with the ground until you get a little further over here.
Yeah, and what we'll probably end up doing is just maybe getting more railroad ties at that height because it does kind of slope down. Want a little bit of slope, but we'll probably just get some more of that dimension and work it across, and maybe cut some thin pieces to go on top of that area there.
So this area, interestingly, it's not a full railroad tie height right there.
Yeah.
It's like a half height. So there is one big mistake on this wall, and it's this section right here.
Yeah. I knew we weren't going to be doing any kind of finish work here, so it wasn't a big rush, and I want to be able to cut a railroad tie lengthwise, and the only way to do that's with a bandsaw mill. Nobody's going to do it for me with the creosote soaked railroad tie.
Yeah. What's a little recap of how you built the retaining wall?
Yeah, so there's 2 different supports on the under the ground on the other side. So you can see a big carriage bolt here. These are I think 16 inches long, and then on the other side is buried, pressure treated 2x4s that kind of go down on a 45-degree angle, and then they're connected to a piece of railroad tie, actually about 2 or 3 feet long. And then also, so on every post has got this 45-degree angle that goes out under the ground, so it's pulling this way, so it's got counterweight on the so it pulls in. And then also we've got these railroad ties here. So these are screwed into the one below it, and then that goes out and it forms a T or dead man. So, and that goes out, I think 3 feet with another piece of railroad tie screwed onto that with timber bolts. So we have them every 3 feet, 3.5 feet, we have something pulling this wall the opposite direction.
When you look down the length of the wall, none of it's bowing out. You know, it's a pretty straight line all the way down.
So this actual 2x6, you can see it's got a little bit, it's not quite in plumb. It was like that to begin with.
Okay.
So it just, when I had it set up with cement, it already had a little bit of negative plumb to it. The other thing is every post is 36 inches underground, and 3 to 4 bags of concrete in each one. So there's a lot of weight down there also anchoring that in place.
All right.
Our frost line is 30 inches, and these are 8-foot posts. So yeah, I want to put some pine trees in, maybe one in the middle, every other section. So like a nice Douglas fir or something like that, something or blue spruce, something that is a bit drought tolerant. And then we can also backfill a little bit with some stone, make some stone, little stone walls, or just kind of lean up the stone on the embankment. So we've got plenty of stone in the woods and right there and all over the place. So
yeah. So we can go over to the rock wall and kind of show, this is sort of how it looks from below the retaining wall. You can see it peeking out over there. All right, so retaining wall number 2 on the side of the house here. This was a fun project because not only did you do wall, you also did stone wall.
right, yeah. And this was tricky because you can see how far down it goes here, 3 railroad ties down. So then it was terrace, so I had to go up, and I made sure I went down deep enough but I also overlapped on the one below, as you can see here. Everyone's got a big timber bolt.
It does look like some of these ties are hovering though. When I look with the camera, it's like,
You know, they're not perfectly straight, so
yeah.
it's touching in there, and then it's. Yeah. I mean, there's no drying left to do on these. These are old railroad ties.
Yeah, yeah. Big question is the rock wall. How's that holding up? Because I know folks were really nervous, like, oh, hand building a rock wall, that's going to fall apart. How's that going to hold up over time?
Yeah, I guess time will tell, but it's doing good so far.
So 2 years. It's been 2 years with snow loads and tons of snow pouring off the roof.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you know, we got our staircase built out of railroad ties. Also, they're connected with 2-inch angle iron at every one here. So, you know, it's quite a counterbalance, kind of pushing that direction. We compacted as we built it up, so no real shifting in rocks. Most of the time, some of the rocks that are moved is because Vigo's pulled them off.
Yeah, we had some trouble with Vigo earlier this year or last year when he was looking for mice in there.
Right, yeah.
He was always looking for mice because they were kind of living in here, but I haven't seen a lot of mice.
Or a cool place to live, to lay down. He'll dig a spot out where the flowers are, plants are.
So a little bit of dirt coming out, you know, washing out with the rains. We'll see that on the steps. But no big, you know, rocks falling into the steps or anything like that.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. Maybe eventually come in with some mortar and kind of fill in here, and kind of pack it in there, and that'll kind of keep the sediment and stuff, rocks and dirt from washing out. So, but I think overall it's holding up pretty good.
Yeah.
So
there's a little summary for you guys about how the retaining walls have been doing in the last couple of years since Brian and I built them 2 years ago now. Hopefully they'll stand for another 22 years or longer.
That's right, hopefully.
But
the older I get, the less work I want to do.
Yeah. So a couple of things to still take care of on the big retaining wall, a little bit of landscaping to be done still to kind of finish it off, but structurally doing really well. You know, like I said, not a lot of shifting going on, and really happy to have a landscaping area to put plants and have a nice walkway around the house, because before it was
just dirt.
Just a dirt slope, and it was a real hazard coming around the house.
Right, yeah. It was a huge amount of work.
It was a huge project. It was like the entire summer's project 2 years ago, but when you look at the finished product and the house, how it stands out, when you're driving up the road, driving up the driveway, it's definitely a statement piece that says a lot about the work that we put into the house.
Absolutely.
So yeah, guys, if you want to see more about the retaining wall, we've got a whole playlist about retaining wall, so you can check it out. You can watch from the beginning how everything transformed. Retaining wall and rock wall, and I think you guys, if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. And
appreciate the amount of work we put into it.
Yeah, a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of.
I got really strong that summer.
Yeah, lifting railroad ties and boulders. So
it's amazing how heavy some of those railroad ties are.
And one good thing about the Rocky Mountains is that all of these rocks came from our property. We did not have to buy a single rock for this project, making a rock wall.
These real big ones came where we were excavating for where we're putting the barn. The real big ones came from that. So,
yeah. So getting back to work on the storage barn, can't just call it a shed anymore.
It's bigger. Once we put the sheeting on the roof, it just seems so much bigger. It's kind of weird.
Hopefully we can get some work done before it rains again.
Hopefully.
All right, guys. See you next time.
All right. Bye for now.